everybody, and welcome to the session on coordination frameworks, inclusiveness, and societal impact. My name is Andrea Arcelli. I'm working for the Climate, Infrastructure, Environment Executive Agency of the Commission. And there I work for the Horizon Europe Transport, where I basically manage a portfolio mix of logistics and automated transport. Today with me there is Anna Larsson, that she will be actually moderating this session. Anna, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone. Try to keep up the energy now for the last session. My name is Anna Larsson. I'm from RISE, Research Institutes of Sweden. I'm director for unit called Energy Conversion, focusing on batteries and fuel cells, but I'm also coordinating the automation area throughout RISE. And just recently I started working with Stefan here next to me in Cluster 7 in the executive group of CCAM.
Thank you, Anna. So again, today we will have the chance to have first-hand impression and feedbacks for these projects that are all ongoing. So they are working in these areas that are very, well, recent, not new, but recent. Very interesting because, of course, as you know, in the past, well, at the beginning of automated transport research, the emphasis was all about technological advancements to basically climb up the SIA ladder very quickly. But then it was clearly that, well, this was the deployment of automated transport was not an incremental change of the transport system, but a change of paradigm. So, and this, because of this change, it will trigger also a number of societal impacts in terms of also inclusiveness, and of course a complexity that will require a series of coordination framework. Well, this is very clear, and if we look into the strategic research and innovation agenda of the CCAM partnership itself, they talk about deployment readiness, and they clearly point out that it's not only about the technological progress, but it's also, it's basically, there are three pillars. One is the deployment of well-tested technologies, so is the trustworthiness of the testing environment. The second one is understanding the impacts, because of course we start to figure out how it's going to be. For instance, on the labor market, we see with a major impact on the labor market. And the third one that is very important is about the increasing the awareness of the future users of what is going to be, and basically prepare the society to embark into this change. So this is what they call societal readiness to innovation. This is very important. I think it's very important that you start as well, because I don't want to take your time. I think it's much more interesting what you're going to say. So the first speaker is Stefan Andrea. Stefan Andrea is working at Hertico. He's managing a number of CCAM projects. Stefan is also an active member in the executive group of the CCAM partnership, where he leads the coordination cluster. And he's, of course, the coordinator also of FAME project, that is the first one to present today. Thanks, Stefan.
Thank you, Andrea, for the introduction, and good afternoon. It's a real pleasure for me to be here and to speak in this session on coordination frameworks and societal impacts, which I believe are really essential for the harmonized and speedy deployment of CCAM in Europe. So let me talk about the FAME project. So the main mission of the EU-funded FAME project is to support the CCAM partnership and the European Commission in aligning and coordinating research and innovation in CCAM in Europe. The project started in July 2022. It's a research and innovation action, and although it's a research action, it has a very strong coordination and support action component, and it's building on a series of previous coordination and support actions that have been running since 2013, and that have set up already several tools, including the EU-wide knowledge base, and as well federated a large network of stakeholders, in particular in cooperation with AirTrack. But still, many challenges remain related to coordination. In particular, today we still have a need for common evaluation methodologies and a common vocabulary. We need to make sure that there's a comparability of results in order to get the bigger picture and when we evaluate the projects. Then there's still a lack of harmonized testing regulations in Europe, and this hampers in particular cross-border testing and large-scale demonstrations. And we have insufficient sharing of data from projects. This can be for various reasons: lack of funding after the end of projects, lack of description of the data, or simply GDPR issues and so on. In order to address that, the FAME project has an objective to build a European framework for CCAM testing on public roads. It comprises a taxonomy, a common evaluation methodology, a CCAM test data space, and a legal and ethical framework. Another challenge is the fragmentation of knowledge. So the knowledge in Europe is still scattered among different projects and stakeholder groups. The CCAM partnership obviously has now federated a strong network, and FAME is supporting and enhancing this network through the organization of events like the UCAT conference, workshops to support the development of the SRIA from the CCAM partnership, and as well reaching out to more local, national, regional projects, and also the international community. As I mentioned, one central piece of FAME that we are maintaining now is the EU-wide knowledge base. It's meant to be the one-stop shop for all the activities related to CCAM in Europe and beyond. So I've just put here some figures. So there's one section in the knowledge base which contains a list of research and innovation projects. And thanks to the strong cooperation with, in particular, the member states representative group of the CCAM partnership, we have been able to significantly improve the number of projects that are included. Today, we have more than 400 projects listed on the knowledge base. So these are projects since the beginning of Horizon 2020, so 2013. And more than half of them are actually national member states projects and regional projects. We also have a collection of policies and regulations. We have a collection of evaluation methodologies. So this is the first step towards building the common evaluation methodology. We have the methodologies like FESTA, which was developed in 2007 and enhanced to cope also for automated driving. We have methodologies from other projects like L3 Pilot, C-Roads, and as well the high-level EU, Japanese, and US trilateral impact assessment framework. We also have a section dedicated to data sharing, where there are some recommendations, hands-on recommendations for sharing of data to improve the exchange of data between projects. We have a section on standards, which has just recently been updated and redesigned with more than 180 CCAM-related standards to date. And we have also a section on roadmaps, and there we are currently carrying out an analysis of the roadmaps according to the different clusters of the CCAM partnership. And the idea is there to give recommendations as well on where there are gaps, and in order to help policymakers to build future roadmaps and action plans. A very important outcome of the project, and that's included in the knowledge base, is the map of test sites. So we have mapped today nearly 300 test sites from more than 60 projects. And all these test sites are classified according to the type of vehicles that are being tested. So passenger cars, shuttles, buses, or delivery vehicles. And also classified according to the type of testing environment. So on public roads, on corridors, simulations, and so on. So this is really the first comprehensive map of where you can see who is doing what and where across Europe. So where do we stand today in terms of outcomes and results of the projects, and what can you expect to see soon as outcomes of the project? So regarding the knowledge base, regarding regulations and policies, so in the frame of the development of the European framework of testing on public roads, we have been conducting in the last year an analysis of testing regulations and administrative framework in 30 countries. So these are the 27 member states and the 3 associated countries, Switzerland, Norway, and the UK. And thanks to this analysis, we will be able to update the knowledge base with very detailed information on the current testing regulations in these countries. We are also obviously updating as well this section with the latest developments in terms of ADS regulations from the European Commission. And regarding glossaries and taxonomy, we have now a new section dedicated to CCAM taxonomy. So this is really a standardized and harmonized toolkit really for CCAM terms. And it will be really it's a fundamental first component of the common evaluation methodology, as we first need to agree on common definitions. We want to also include there some other taxonomies, so we are working, for example, with the SINFONICA project to link their taxonomy there as well. We will have another section as well in the knowledge base on CCAM toolkits. So the idea here is to have a collection of toolkits that can be showcased on the knowledge base. So these are not only toolkits from the FAME project, but as well from other projects. So one of the first toolkits, for example, we want to introduce there is the CCAM readiness self-assessment tool that was developed as part of the Horizon 2020's Coexist project. And it's a tool that allows a city to establish at what level they are in terms of readiness for deployment. And then according to this evaluation framework, they will be directed to different sections of the knowledge base in order to really have a targeted content for them and to support them in planning for CCAM deployment. And it's also what we want to do with knowledge summaries. We really want to have much more targeted content now for different type of stakeholders when they visit the knowledge base. Stakeholder engagement, as I mentioned, the idea is that we really extend and enhance what the CCAM partnership is doing. So in particular, we want to try to find where there are gaps in terms of stakeholders. So we made an analysis here of the distribution of stakeholder times and also in what kind of projects they are involved to see also how the organizations are linked with each other. We are also having several engagement activities. So we have a big LinkedIn group where we regularly launch some polls to understand, for example, what are the priorities, next priorities for research and innovation, or what are the challenges. And then we organized the UCAT conference in cooperation with the European Commission and the CCAM partnership. So the last one took place last year in Brussels, and we are now working already on the next one in 2025, which will take place in ISPRA at the Joint Research Center. And the conference is taking place every second year. So in between, we also organize the UCAT Symposia. So it's a smaller version of the conference with a few very interactive workshops. And the next one will take place in conjunction with the RTR conference, with the TRA conference in Dublin on the 18th and 19th of April. Then a very important part is, of course, our cooperation with the member states representative group and as well with international cooperation. So we organized workshops with 8 countries to get an overview of their roadmaps, to share what we are doing and what we have in the SINEA. And we are now preparing a report which should be published by the end of next month on the research and innovation collaboration opportunities with different countries. And there we cover up to 14 countries. The CCAM evaluation methodology, so this is still a work in progress. The idea is to have a first draft of the EU handbook in spring this year. So at the moment we conducted several working sessions together with the projects. So we are working here with all the CCAM projects, the 18 or 19 projects in the meantime that were launched in 2022 and 2023. In order to get their challenges and their contributions to that. We worked on the taxonomy, as I mentioned already, and then now the plan is to have this SAM handbook, which will cover 16 impact areas. And that's the last part, so that's the framework for testing on public road. I mentioned already that we are conducting this analysis now of the testing framework in 30 countries. This allowed us to identify commonalities and peculiarities across the different member states, and we have a workshop this week with the member states representative and as well with some project representative to share what we can get out of this and what could be the recommendations in particular for the high-level meeting that will be organized by the Belgian presidency later this year. Finally, the data sharing framework. So this section has been updated, and the idea is then in the second phase of the project that we will build a data sharing data space. Many of the projects, CCAM projects, have already expressed interest in making their data available for this data space that will be federated, and as well in using the data that will be shared there. In terms of impact, this is just to say that we are, as FAME, as a Cluster 7 project, we are supporting in particular the specific objective and general objective of the partnership in terms of sharing of knowledge, coordination, obviously. And the idea is here really to enhance the cooperation and capacity building and sharing of best practices across the different projects in Europe. The stakeholder engagement will definitely facilitate the coordination, a better alignment of research and innovation, strengthen the CCAM ecosystem, and as will lead to policy recommendations for the future. The common evaluation methodology will allow comparability of results in order to have continuity and as well an impact assessment of the wider impacts, and a better excellence as well and progress of research and innovation in CCAM in Europe. The framework for testing on public roads will allow to have harmonized regulations for the operation of an automated vehicle, common ethical principles for the testing activities as well, and then for data as well for data recording, reporting, and monitoring. And the test data space, as I mentioned, would be hopefully a very important tool to have more sharing of information between the CCAM projects so that when they end, that the data can be reused and that they can really concentrate on making complementarity of the different studies. And that's my last slide. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Stefan. The next speaker is Stefan De Vries. Stefan is a project manager at Plus Idiada. He has a long-lasting experience in the CCAM domain with a particular particular experience in design of testing facilities, and of course is the coordinator of the Sunrise project. Stefan, floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, hello from my side. Thank you for having me here. Today I will give you an overview, a high-level overview of the Sunrise project, which I'm currently leading. Before we start, I'd like to explain a little bit the context of this particular project, and that context is really the safety assurance of CCAM systems. Worldwide, there's a lot of initiatives on this topic already, but there's still a lack of a common or harmonized approach, and that is exactly where the Sunrise project is operating. The Sunrise project wants to ensure a harmonized safety assurance framework that can be applied at least in Europe and maybe even abroad. At least we seem to agree on some things or some aspects of those kind of frameworks worldwide, and that is on one hand the use of both virtual and physical testing to assess this kind of technology, and also the other one I can't remember right now. Anyway, we're trying to find a harmonized approach to the topic of safety assurance of CCAM systems. Okay, so having that said, let's go to the next page. It's kind of an abstract topic, what we're talking about, safety assurance of CCAM systems. So to give you a better idea about the vision that we are trying to achieve in the Sunrise project, we created this overview, an image, to better understand what exactly we are doing in the Sunrise project. So here you see that there's different stakeholders in society that each have their own specific interest in this framework that we are creating, the Sunrise Safety Assurance Framework. For example, there's vehicle developers or technology developers that might ask us the question, what kind of scenarios should I test my automated vehicles for? And also certifiers, regulators, or NCAP institutes will ask us, how should I assess the safety of automated vehicles before I can release them onto the public road, before I can put my stamp on it? That's a very important part of the stakeholders involved. Also, researchers in this field might ask us the question, how can I compare my vehicle test results to those of others working in the same field? Or tool developers in this field might ask us the question, how can I make my tools fit those of others that are also operating in this same area? So to those questions and many more, the Sunrise Safety Assurance Framework is trying to provide the answers. And we do not do so alone. We do not operate independently. We do not want to create another silo in this field. We want to really harmonize the initiatives and the methodologies, the tools, etc., behind this kind of framework. So that's why we started with Head Start project. That's our predecessor project. But we also highly connect to internal international initiatives in this field. For example, V&V Methods that was recently finished in Germany, but also Sakura project in Japan, and some initiatives in this area in US and Canada, and also Korea. So a question that many people ask us is, are you creating another database with scenarios for assessment of this kind of technologies? And that's clearly something we do not do in Sunrise. We do not create another database to be filled with massive amount of scenarios. Instead, what we do, as we will see later, we will connect to existing scenario databases in this field. For example, the one of ADC, which is already part of our consortium, but also Streetwise by TNO and SafetyPol by University of Warwick. We will connect to those existing scenario databases through a dedicated federated data framework, which I will explain a little bit later. So the main goal, as you can see on this slide, is development of a harmonized CCAM safety assurance framework. Total runtime is 3 years. We're almost at midterm now, and the total budget is 13.5 million euros, completely funded by the European Commission. So let's now have a closer look at the work plan, or and also the objectives related to this work plan. Again, you can see a centralized role for this CCAM safety assurance framework. That's the main product of our project, and you can also see that this framework consists of 3 main elements, which is a method on one side, a tool chain, and a data framework. So a method, for example, for scenario selection and allocation, and rating procedures and safety metrics, and a tool chain for both virtual and physical validation of CCAM systems, and anything in between. It can be a hybrid option as well. And then there's a data framework, which is not as another scenario database, but which connects to existing databases in this field. And that will have its own structure and governance mechanisms, but also its own ontology and querying that allows for querying of the scenario databases that are connected to this framework. In the middle, you see a big arrow with relevant and realistic test cases. Those test cases are defined also in our project to put our own safety assurance framework to the test at a certain point. So we will take a series of use cases and apply the safety assurance framework to those use cases, and thereby putting them to the test. So that will all result in a lot of technical results and demonstrators towards the end of the project. And very important is at the bottom of the screen, you see that we engage during the complete life cycle of the project. We engage with important vehicle safety bodies in this area to make them aware of the Sunrise project and hopefully also adapt already its first results. So those are entities like the UNECE or the European Commission and its member states, of course. Also consumer testing agencies like Euro NCAP, or harmonization and standardization entities like ISO, SAE and ASAM. We don't only explain what we're doing, but really hope we can already make them adopt our framework. That would be the ultimate goal of our project. So that's the overall objectives and work plan. You can see that the objectives of the project are integrated into this whole work plan. The main one being objective number 1, the creation of this safety assurance framework. So these are the partners on our consortium, about 22 partners in total. Also some partners from UK, University of Warwick, for example. And besides the partners that are working directly on our consortium, of course, all European, based in European member states, we also highly connect to external experts and related initiatives. And with related initiatives, I mean the projects that I just mentioned, like V&V Methods in Germany or Sakura in Japan, but also initiatives in Korea, Canada, Australia and USA. All of that to align what we are doing in our consortium, not creating another silo, but really reaching out to other initiatives like this in the world to align as much as possible to what they are doing. That will hopefully help to adopt our framework by vehicle safety bodies around the world. So now let's have a look at a little bit of the results that we created so far. We're very close to our midterm, and at midterm we will be able to present a draft version of this safety assurance framework with all its main components. But it's a bit early to explain those results right now, right here, because that will be become ready and available hopefully next month. So it's a bit too early in that sense, but I will explain the results that we have created so far in the first 12 months of the project. And in those first 12 months, we created basically the baseline. We did a lot of benchmarking to see what others are doing in this field, and use that in our project as well. So let's have a look at the safety assurance framework, the main component, plus each of its components. As we will see on the next slides. So, work package 2 is about this main element, this safety assurance framework. The most important achievement that we did so far in this work package is a benchmark to see what others in the world are doing in this field of safety assurance. So for that, we took the perspective of 4 different types of stakeholders. And those you can see here on this table on the right-hand side. That's not individual stakeholders, but each of these stakeholders really represent a group behind them. So we think these 4 groups correctly cover what the target users would need in such a framework. So the first one is homologation technical services. We looked through their eyes and we looked at what is available right now. And we tried to identify the gaps that are not available yet in what is existing out there. So that's what we need to cover in the Sunrise project. So from a homologation technical service point of view, those are items like in-service monitoring for CCAM systems. And there's generally also a lack of focus on querying procedures for scenario databases from their perspective. Then Euro NCAP, or representing the whole group of NCAP institutes, they see a gap or a need for scenarios for higher levels of automation, not just ADAS, but higher levels as well. And they want to complement physical testing with virtual testing. And then from the OEM's perspective, there's 3 gaps that were identified. Those are a common safety approach and a standardized way to gather and integrate data from different sources, and a standardized European federated scenario database. And that's exactly what we're working on in Sunrise. So in that sense, we're going the right way. Then from a scenario database host point of view, there's a need for harmonization of scenario descriptions and a federated layer. So those are the main stakeholders with their main gaps identified in this activity. And that's the gaps that we try to cover with the Sunrise project from now on. So that's what our work, with this, the basis is laid for the work, the further work to be done in this work package. Then we go to the first main component of the Sunrise Safety Assurance Framework, which is the method. In this method, we did a similar exercise, a benchmark on methods for safety assurance of these kind of systems. We came up with this draft of the Sunrise method, which you see here on this image. There will be data from different sources which will be processed by our method and abstracted, and then those scenarios resulting from that will be allocated to different test instances, different test environments, ranging from simulation or physical evaluation or anything in between. It can be a hybrid option. That will result in certain ratings, and those ratings will have pass and fail criteria that will be defined with our method as well. And there might be a need for reallocating certain scenarios, if needed, to other parts of the tool chain. Maybe you find out that in simulation results were not completely reliable. Perhaps you have to do some more physical testing in that as well. So that's the main draft that we now created based on this benchmark of different methods, and on which we will now build our work in the rest of this work package, of this component, the method. Now, the next component is the tool chain. And in this work package, we created, or we defined the set of subsystems on which we think the tool chain should contain. So we have this tool chain for assessing CCAM systems, and we identified each of its components on that tool chain. So that's what you can see on this image here. All the colored parts are elements that should be in that tool chain. The gray parts are input and output or activities related to that tool chain, but not necessarily to be fulfilled in this work package. So in that tool chain, you will see items like a test case manager to manage all test cases and it's their allocation to the tool chain. Of course, there will also be the subject vehicle, that's the centralized element. Then the environment around the subject vehicle, the traffic agents around it, dynamic or static, connectivity items, but also very important, simulation model validation. And that is needed to know what the reliability is of the simulation that you are performing to assess this vehicle. Maybe the reliability is not high enough, and you might need to combine your virtual simulation with physical testing somehow. So that's an important part of the toolchain as well. So with that, we created the basis also for this work package to build upon in the rest of this work package on the toolchain. Now, let's go to the work package number 5, which together with work package number 6 forms the third component, the data framework. But in this particular work package, we harmonize the content of this scenario data framework to be developed in work package 6. So this is really laying the foundation for that framework, that is data framework that is created in work package 6. Here we decided in the first activity what the requirements should be for this kind of data framework. A lot of requirements came out of that exercise, and based on those requirements we were able to create these two images in blue, where you can see or grasp the main intention of this data framework that I'm talking about, and that will be developed in work package 6. So the user, the final user, that can be an OEM or this homologation technical service or Euro NCAP, one single user enters to this data framework, one single portal, and through that portal he can access through all the connected databases. That's the idea. So behind that one-stop shop you find a lot of scenario databases that are connected to it. That's the main essence of this. But then if you further decompose the data framework in further components, so behind the scenes, you will find elements like interfacing or data processing, data retrieval, and governance mechanisms for this framework. So that's the main part we did so far, and building on these requirements and these concepts we will now further work on the ontology, laying the basis for the third component of our framework, which is the data framework. Another framework, but this time a data framework. This layer, this federated layer to which external databases can connect on one side and the user on the other side. There's been no deliverables yet so far in this work package, but what we did is define a number of storylines. So these storylines are used to identify users and data flows and different components of this data framework. For example, you see here the storyline for onboarding of a new user. How does that go? If a new user wants to use Sunrise data framework and all the scenario databases connected to it, how does that go? That is completely defined in this storyline, as well as on the other side, a scenario database that wants to connect to our framework. How does that go? There's also a storyline for that. And also for the third one, for searching and retrieving scenarios from the databases, pushing new scenarios into those databases through our framework, or to allocate test scenarios to the toolchain. So 5 storylines based on which we are now developing the data framework. And for that we took reference to existing scenario databases, as you can see here on the screen, for example, Safety Pool, ADScene, VNV Methods, and TNO Streetwise. So, now let's get to the impact of of our project, Sunrise. And for that, it's important to understand that Sunrise is part of a chain of projects. It's not a project on itself with a finalized product. There was this predecessor project, Head Start, on which we already laid the foundation for what we are doing today in Sunrise. And in that predecessor project, Head Start, we worked on technology readiness level of about 3 to 4, so still quite immature technology level. But then on the Sunrise, we take that to about 6 or 7. So the technology, of course, becomes much more mature under this project, but it's still not the final product to be applied full scale, exploited full scale by its final users. That will probably occur in a next project after Sunrise. So therefore, the main benefit of Sunrise, or the main impact that it has is of academic nature. Sunrise really makes a fundamental contribution to advances on CCAM safety assurance, including, for example, progress on safety argumentation or methodologies, tools, data, standardization, etc. And in that sense, it aligns with the strategic research and innovation agenda, the specific objective number 1, stating that validated safety and security, improved robustness and resilience of CCAM technologies and systems. That's exactly what we're contributing to. For that, we have different pathways. Like I said before, we try to make vehicle safety bodies adopt the project results that we are creating. We have dialogues with other initiatives around the world, with individual CCAM experts, with vehicle safety bodies of different types. And of course, we have also an innovation and exploitation manager that makes sure that the impact of this project is maximized. Now, let's have a look at, this was midterm impact. Now let's have a look at long-term impact. So here we should really see the chain of projects of which Sunrise forms a part. So once that complete chain of projects is done and this safety assurance framework is created and fully applied and exploited by its target users, then we'll also notice the social and economic benefits of this framework. The most important social benefit being improved traffic safety. That's what we're doing it for, of course. But also indirectly, we, with our safety assurance framework, we significantly accelerate the large-scale deployment, hopefully, of CCAM systems onto our public roads in Europe, and thereby there will also be an economic benefit. But the most important one, improved safety, traffic safety, of course. And in that sense, it also aligns with the again with the SRIA expected social impact number 1, improving safety and security of the transport system drastically. So that's what we're aiming for. And with that, I come to the end of this presentation. I hope you found this useful. If you are interested in becoming actively involved in the project, then we have a solution for that. We have created an expert platform to which people can subscribe, CCAM experts. They can get informed on first hand about what we're doing in the Sunrise project, the results and the plans, and they can give their feedback on what we're doing along the way. So that gives you a direct input also to get your voice heard in our project. So if you're interested in that, just follow these links or this QR code, and then you can subscribe as a external expert platform member. So that was it from my side. So thank you. And I don't know if there's time for some questions or we need to jump to the next presentation.
If you have a specific question on the presentation, you can go ahead. Otherwise, we will have plenty of time at the end with open discussion and question again. So thank you very much, Stefan.
Okay.
So with these two presentations, one on FAME, one on the project Sunrise, we closed the little slot dedicated to coordination frameworks. And now with Giulia Renzi, that is the coordinator of SINFONICA, we start instead the presentation of the two projects dealing more with societal impacts and inclusiveness. So Giulia is a researcher at the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia in Italy. She's the coordinator of two projects, ongoing projects. One is SINFONICA, the other is Keystone. And Giulia is specifically dedicated to research in areas like inclusion, accessibility, and equality in transport world. So, Giulia,
thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Are you still awake? Are you still with me? I know it's a long day today, and unfortunately, there isn't the cocktail party, so let's try to stay with me while I present the SINFONICA project. I hope I'm not going to bore you. If I see someone fall asleep, I will change my voice. So, okay, so SINFONICA. SINFONICA stands for Social Innovation to Foster Inclusive, Cooperative, Connected and Automated Mobility. It's an Horizon Europe project, part of the CCAM partnership. We started in September 2022. And we are going to finish in August 2025. We are 14 partners from 7 countries, and I work for the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia. We are the coordinator of this project, and when we started discuss about SINFONICA, first during the proposal phase and then during the project, when we started, we decided to choose our keywords, not just for social reason, in order to put the right hashtag when we share something, but also to be sure that we always have a clear idea of our focus. And among the keywords, we have the inclusivity, accessibility, equity, users' needs, engagement, acceptance, willingness to use, knowledge, and co-creation. Keep in mind these keywords because we will see that we are trying to keep them as our focus during all the phases of the project. We also decided to have a motto, which is we leave no one behind. And once again, we'll see why this is important for us. So we can say that the SINFONICA project is divided in 6 phases. The first one was the creation of the group of interest. The group of interest is a word that we decided to use to define all the people that are involved in the co-creation activities, in the engagement activities, in the collection of data, together with the municipalities involved in the SINFONICA project, which are Trikala, West Midland, Hamburg, and North Brabant. Together with these 4 municipalities, we defined all the people that we wanted to listen their opinion and all the stakeholders that we need in our focus group, in our workshop, and in our surveys. And once again, we kept in mind our motto that we don't want to leave anyone behind. So the first phase of our project was to analyze projects, literature, talk with the municipalities in order to be sure that our motto could be the true lead of our project. And then we had, as second phase, the creation of methodologies. In fact, one of the main objectives of SINFONICA at the end is to release some guidelines and recommendations on how to collect data in a qualitative way, in a quantitative way, through new and innovative methods. But one of the focus is also to create engagement strategies. We have talked about co-creation a lot, not just during this session, but previously today. Actually, our opening session today was focusing on co-creation, but there isn't really a methodology that is working every time, everywhere. So we are trying to discover what works and with whom. And finally, there is, for the first part of the 3 phases of SINFONICA, there is the participatory approach implementation. So put the methodologies, the engagement strategies, and so on in real life with the municipalities. And you can see that these 3 phases are on orange because the first 2 are completed now and the third one is ongoing, while the gray area is still has to come. So after that, we will have to analyze all the data. We will have to develop a tool. I will explain a little bit better about this later. And of course, we will give some guidelines and recommendations in a more traditional way. So, first round, interviews and focus group. What does it mean? It means that we decided to organize our work in 3 different rounds. So we created the methodologies, we defined the target, and then we started with a first round of 2 months of data collection. And then we stopped for 1 month, 1.5 months, in order to see if the methodology is working, if the engagement strategy is working, what can we change, what can we improve, which questions are working, which questions are not working, what do we have to change, and we do that for 3 rounds. So right now we are at the end of the first round. It actually finished around the mid of December. So we are in the phase of developing the new guidelines for the second round that is starting in these days. Up to now, we have been doing more than 120 interviews, and we still have more than 160 to do. We have done more than 14 focus groups involving around 80, 90 people, and we still have 22 focus groups to do. We still have a workshop to do with the stakeholders, and a large survey around Europe. Once again, you can see in orange and in gray, I hope it's big enough for everyone, the people that we have already talked with and the people that we still need to talk for our goals. So some first results. As said, what I'm sharing now are partial results of the first round of our data collection methodologies, because we still have to analyze all the data that we collected, but I wanted to present something for this conference, so I tried to find some foods for thought to share with you. So first of all, co-creation methodology are worth it. For sure, they are complex, because when we started to talk with the municipalities were expecting from us direction on what do we have to do, how do we have to do, but that wasn't our goal. Our goal was the co-creation. So we are trying to set up some guidelines on how to co-create in a successful way. For sure, there is the need to meet face-to-face. And another thing that we felt on our skin was that role-playing games is very useful, also for us, also for people that have to deal with talking with people within the municipalities. Another thing that we discover is that the engagement strategies need to be updated constantly, and there isn't a common strategy, a common engagement strategies that work for everyone during the entire project lifetime and for all the different cultural habits. And last but not least, the focus groups reveals to be more interesting as output than interviews, because putting people together, let's say, that creates something new, but interviews help people, especially people with mobility challenges, to feel more comfortable. So we can say that we don't have to choose among these strategies, but we have to combine different approaches in order to be sure that everyone is feeling safe in sharing their opinions. And now some preliminary results that I guess are more juicy for you, and it's what we discover about what people think about CCAM. So one of our questions during the focus group was to rank the 4 A's: availability, accessibility, affordability, and acceptability. Where for the moment, we didn't find a common view in ranking these 4 A's, but on the contrary of what we were expecting, is not accessibility, the first A, but is availability. And I remember you that one of our keywords is inclusiveness. So we are talking with many people with mobility challenges, and still is not accessibility the main focus, but is availability. People want to feel free to move where they want, when they want, especially people with mobility challenges. In fact, one of the main lack of public transport that was felt by the people that we talked with is the lack of freedom in the movement. And another positive results that we found is that it is mostly believed that CCAM will improve transport characteristics compared to current public transport. Security and safety in CCAM seems to be very important, but this is not surprising for everyone, I guess. But what was surprising for us is that we talked with very few early birders among our people, and still the most of the people that we talked with said that they completely trust technology. And that was something a bit different from literature and that we weren't expecting. And still, another related aspect is that digital-related issues are still there. So it means that the problem is not that people do not trust technology, but sometimes people are not able to use technology, or they don't feel confident in use technology, which is something slightly different, but that has to be considered. Another interesting aspect is that when we talked with people, of course, some of them had experience with autonomous vehicles, and the following are the most frequent statements. So we are not ready for this, not so practical, okay, but too slow. Nice, but too slow. Safe, but too slow. Comfortable, but too slow. Sustainable, but too slow. This is very interesting in our opinion, and in the second and third round, we are trying to dig in deeper on this topic. Of course, this is part of a culture in Europe that is going to change. Many cities are now approaching to the 30 kilometers zones. And of course, some culture problems or culture obstacles will be now on our way, but we feel that we have to work on the idea that in the future, the mobility is not going to be faster, but it's going to be more comfortable, more sustainable, and so on and so on. And this was another interesting output. We asked, how would you express in one word your first immediate attitude towards high digital and autonomous forms of mobility? I hope you can see that the three main words are positive, interesting, and excited, which is very nice results, I guess, for the CCAM partnership especially. We were surprised because we thought that there was a bit of insecurity, more than our results is showing. But of course, we cannot ignore that among these very nice words, there are also words like hell, or no way, or horrific, or skeptical. So the majority is giving us a good sign, but do you remember our motto, our SINFONICA motto? Leaving no one behind. So we must consider also these horrific, hell, and so on feelings. So I'm going toward the conclusion of my presentation, just a couple of slides more to say that we are going through the second round right now, and the third round will be between April and May. So we will expect more results around September. And then we will have the tool in August and the final recommendation towards the end of the project. What to expect from SINFONICA? Once the first output is the methodology that I was talking about at the beginning, to engage users and stakeholders, to collect certain data with specific targets, to build a community, because for municipalities going on, if we want to build on co-creation activities, we must build communities around the municipalities, and also to train new colleagues. It's sometimes something underestimated, but also in municipalities there is a pretty high turnover, so we have to be sure that we share with the people that come after us what the main aim. The second is of course the knowledge that we will take out from all the interviews, focus groups, workshops that we are doing. And the tool that I was talking about before is going to be an interactive and user-friendly tool to deliver tailored information based on our results. So it means that if you are a city going through some short and easy-to-fill questions, you will be able to receive some information if, for example, you want to organize a large-scale demonstration, or if you want to create a new methodology to talk with your citizens. And of course, beside the tool, we will also give some guidelines and recommendations in a more traditional way. One of our goals is also to increase acceptance and awareness of CCAM in our 4 municipalities and around Europe as well. And for that reason, we are keeping a blog on our SINFONICA website. We are not talking just about SINFONICA. Actually, when we talk about SINFONICA, we put the news on the articles under the news section, but on our blog, we write about CCAM, autonomous vehicle, digitalization, and we do it in using some marketing and advertising strategies in order to reach many people, as many people as possible, not on the technical field. Of course, the language is a barrier. because we are writing just in English. But if someone of you wants to write something for our blog in order to explain also what you're doing in your projects or in your company or in your city, you are more than welcome. What we have delivered until now, of course, Stefan has already said about our vocabulary. We are collaborating with the FAME project in order to share also the knowledge base that we are going to develop and that they are as well. The simulation from where the CCAM services scaled up impacts on the mobility is coming out next month, I think, at the end of February, actually. Then we are cooperating internationally, always thanks to the collaboration with the FAME project. We have been last year in San Francisco to talk about our approach to inclusiveness and to listen what they are doing in order to try to learn as much as possible. We are trying to settle new collaboration also with Japan projects that are focusing on social inclusiveness as well. We are, of course, always collaborating with Move to CCAM. We are participating together with Hector in conferences in order to try to spread the word that inclusiveness is one of the key aspects of the transport of the future, we hope at least. And we are organizing a workshop with the Selfie project in order to see how their cybersecurity analysis can receive extra feedback from our municipalities and our groups of interest. Okay, I hope I didn't take too much time, and I hope you're still awake for Hector to come.
I am, but Julia, I have a question. Thank you very much, first of all. Just to make a little bit of ping pong, I have a question. So you were saying that out of this co-creation exercise, one of the feedback is that there is a strong expectation that automated transport will have an impact on public transport, improving public transport, you said. Can you explain a bit better?
Yes. With SINFONICA, we decided to focus mainly on CCAM, on how CCAM would impact public transport. So we are not focusing on private vehicles, but on public transport. And when we talked with people, and we talk mainly, once again, with people with mobility challenges, they are all convinced that what will come will be strongly focused on improve what already exists in their cities. So, of course, we have very different municipalities in our country because, for example, North Brabant has a different awareness than Trikala or Hamburg. So compared to what they have in their reality, they are sure they will have a more accessible public transport, a more equal, also talking about the money that will cost. And as I said, the most important for them is the availability. So they want a public transport that can answer their needs of moving wherever, whenever. That was one of the most important things for them.
Thank you a lot, Julia.
Thank you.
So, last but not least, we have the presentation of Move to CCAM. Mr. Hector Cañas Hector is working at Babel, it's a German company, is active in several transport projects, also local projects in the Iberia region. And of course, is the coordinator of Move to CCAM. Hector?
Thank you, Andrea.
The floor is yours.
So, Move to CCAM. Just to start with some questions that we want to answer in our project. So, for example, how will CCAM integrate with current forms of transportation? Will citizens embrace these technologies? Will organizations be able to adapt their business models to these technologies? And how can our authorities quantify the impact of integrating CCAM? And as well, how would they change their own mobility plans? So some of these questions are the ones that are motivating us to our project. We are a consortium of 9 organizations, 6 technical partners, and 3 prototypical regions, North Aegean in Greece, Helmond, Netherlands, and GZM in Poland. We have associated partners from the UK, as you see from UCL, thinks and the Oxford Institute. But also we're collaborating with universities in the US, with the University of California in Santa Barbara. We started in September 2022. We're a 30 months project. We're a bit over our halfway. And our main outcome is to develop an assessment tool to evaluate the impact that CCAM will have in society. Going straight forward to our objectives and their potential impacts, what we first try to do in our project is to establish a wide network of CCAM stakeholders and citizens. And we're aiming to do a satellite network of across 300 organizations and over 8,000 citizens across these 8 countries from our consortia. As well, taking an example from the projects that presented, we are also heavily invested in co-creation. And with co-creation, we are developing from a bottom-up approach CCAM scenarios, business models, and KPIs that will allow us to model our tool. So far, we have aimed to develop 52 stakeholder dialogues across 8 countries. And in here, we're going to define over 30 use cases, 15 business models, and over 200 KPIs. And our main goal, as I mentioned, is the development of our impact assessment tool. But at the same time, we're going to pair this up with training courses, data warehouses, and knowledge banks that will heavily help in the usage of the tool. So as a first objective is our satellite network, as I mentioned. So far, we have engaged with over 200 organizations from these 12 stakeholder groups. And almost we're reaching over 500 citizens across our 8 countries. But then the richness of the engagement with the satellites is that we have, across 7 co-creation activities, been able to really deep dive on what these stakeholder groups want as a CCAM. So in this, we have co-created 52 CCAM use cases that are available in our data knowledge bank. And from these use cases, we have been able to also co-create 15 business models for a selection of use cases. And at the same time, we have had closer interviews with organizations and also citizens on potential impact that these use cases will have in their day-to-day activities. Also, and I think a really successful activities that we had was our virtual reality games in our 3 prototypical regions, in which we were able to develop and program virtual reality scenarios, as you can see in the photo, and through a VR headset and audio system, we were able to get solid insights and experiences from citizens while being on board in a CCAM scenario. Also, just a couple of days ago, I would say in end of January, we had our AV demo in Helmand, in which we were able to test 3 scenarios with a delivery robot, a shuttle bus, and a bus of across 30 passengers. We had a pool of participants of 40 citizens from Helmand, but also thanks to a collaboration with the SHOW project, which was also developing their demo in the automotive campus, we were able to pool a total of 90 citizens in these 3 scenarios. And well, what we wanted to analyze was whether the vehicle can operate smoothly and safely, and what did the citizens thought about being on board of these vehicles. And also, we wanted to analyze whether AV could address some of the challenges that the citizens had at the beginning, before testing the scenarios, and then afterwards. And also, our impact assessment tool is almost on a beta version launch. We're expecting to launch it at end of March. Andrea, he's our PO, so he will be certainly knowing this. But one of the main functionalities that we will have with our tool is that users will be able to create CCAM scenarios, evaluate them across different KPIs from these 8 dimensions that I was mentioning before, and compare it with different CCAM scenarios. So it's will be a powerful tool in order to assess which use case is the best fitting for a given city and so forth. Also, we are taking we're trying to incorporate ISO standards to also increase the exploitability of the tool. And also we have considered the SUMI indicators also to try to build up from previous work. Regarding our mid to long-term impacts, once the tool will be launched, we are developing a training campaign between US and Europe. This is why our partnership with UC Santa Barbara will come handy, because we will go there and also show potential stakeholders from the United States on how they can implement their tools to assess the societal impact. We will prepare training material, videos, guidebooks for all decision makers that want to analyze whether CCAM is the right thing for their own agendas. Also, we're developing recommendations. One of the things that we want to do is adapt the sustainable urban mobility plans assessment criteria to also consider societal needs and requirements. And I think our tool will be able to provide some quantitative background to do so. Also, we want to be close to policy makers and develop recommendations for them in order to also consider societal impacts within their plans. And finally, with the cross-collaboration opportunities, because CCAM is something that will happen in a medium to long term, let's say, on a full-scale potential. So we will develop 15 roadmaps for 15 use cases on this time frames, short, medium, and long term, and develop recommendations on what to do in order to consider these impacts that we have evaluated. Also, we're publishing frameworks to assess, to help those that are developing large-scale demonstrators to consider societal impact. So those of you that are working on large-scale demonstrators, I think this will also help you to analyze these points. We're also trying to guide those in R&D and specifically the scientific community on societal issues. And finally, as well as Julia, we are planning to collaborate with Japanese projects through FAME and also extend our results in Asia. Well, I can answer more questions in the Q&A, but thank you and feel free to follow us and be pending from what we are doing in Move to CCAM. Thank you.
Thank you, Lot.
Thank you so much to all our 4 speakers. Another round of applause, I think. So it's time for questions. I hope you saved the most important here. Yes, we'll start here.
Thank you very much. Steve Phillips, Conference European Dexter Roads. Some great presentations, but I want to focus on what he says in the title, inclusiveness, and what Julia was saying about leaving no one behind. I'm just contemplating, I didn't hear anything really about what happens outside cities. I mean, there was a very city-centric focus on a lot of the presentations, and I appreciate maybe there's some subtleties in there I'm missing. But I'm just wondering, are you addressing that? Are you also addressing some of the specific issues that might be applicable to rural towns, rural areas, where they don't necessarily have the connectivity, where they have completely different classes of roads, different safety issues? And how do we really ensure that no one does get left behind?
So, who would like to start? Julia?
I think I can start. So within SINFONICA, I think it's a bit different from the other projects. We are not developing use cases or see if cities are ready as the tool in FAME, but we are talking with citizens in order to understand their fears, their concerns, what they would like, what they are scared of, looking into the future of transport. This is the introduction to say that we are trying to talk with everyone in order to not leave anyone behind. So we have defined several categories of people that have to be involved in each municipality, because according to literature, according to previous project, we're the most excluded one from the past, and then we left the word to the municipalities that we work with in order to understand their specific problems. You mentioned the rural areas. For example, North Brabant province, one of their focus was to talk with people that live and work in rural areas in order to understand their needs, their concerns, what they are missing, what they would like to have with CCAM. So, for example, this category is not a category that is explored in all the municipalities, but is explored in one of our municipalities. Then we are talking with people with physical disabilities, cognitive disabilities. We are talking with women. We are talking with LGBTQIA+ community in order to see if they're experiencing some particular fears, if they feel excluded from some services. So we are doing our best to reach all the categories that we could imagine, that we could find in the literature, and that the municipality shared with us.
Yes, thank you. Hector.
Yeah. Also, from Move to CCAM, we, as I mentioned, we co-created 52 use cases. A lot of these 52 use cases have a application in the rural areas. Actually, this is why we opted for three regional partners. As I mentioned, the GZM in Poland has a lot of rural area conditions, as well in the North Aegean in Greece. So we have a good stock of use cases from the rural areas.
Are you satisfied with the answers? Yes. Thank you so much. Any more questions? Yes.
Hi everyone, I'm Diego from R&D team in Autostrade per l'Italia group. I have, so first of all, congratulations to all of you for the great work you presented today. I have a question for specifically for Stefan regarding the Sunrise project. When you, no, sorry, maybe I forgot the name. Okay. So for you, when you mention the key stakeholders regarding the safety assurance topic, you didn't mention the role of road operator, or if we talk about road transport, of infrastructure operator in general. So the question is simple, is why? And I'm thinking about the connectivity element that the road operator can put on the table for assurance the safety of CCAM, where the first C stands, in fact, for connectivity? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. The connectivity part is indeed included in our safety assurance framework. So as you've maybe seen in the tool chain, connectivity is also considered. So it's a basic element that should be part of that tool chain for sure. That will come from the infrastructure for sure, but we do not take road operators into account because we really focus on the systems themselves. So the automated vehicles or connected cooperative and automated vehicles on the road. So not from the road perspective. That's not part of the scope of our projects. That's true. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
We had another one over there. Yes.
Thank you. CCAM from TNO. Just one little answer to the question before. Tomorrow the V4Safety projects will be presented. It does include changes in infrastructure. So there it is covered. On the SINFONICA project, you're concentrating on public transportation. Is that correct? Yeah. So I really appreciate the in-depth interviews that you're doing. So are you doing this after experiencing a shuttle or automated bus for half an hour, or is this independent of having experience before?
So it is independent, which means that we interview people regardless if they had experience or not. But our 4 municipalities have a strong experience in autonomous vehicles and CCAM in general. So most of the people that we are talking with have a clear idea of what is CCAM, and some of them have previously experienced shuttles or private cars in different demonstrations projects, not related to SINFONICA though.
Okay, but the people in the cities that you mentioned, are then professionals or are they general public?
General public. We didn't talk with a professional yet. We plan to do it through workshop, but we didn't have workshop in the first round. We will have in the second and third ones. Yeah. Okay. Because, sorry, just to finish, because we decided to talk with professionals when we have some answers from the public. Yeah. So we postponed the talk with them a bit later.
Okay. Yeah, as a follow-up, I'd be interested in the difference in people who have already experienced the shuttle and the ones that have not, because they might have quite different views. So that's one question. The other is on how do you see the connection to human factors? Because you're taking really the effort to doing these in-depth interviews. So probably it will also give some cues what is important in the human factors for these people. Do you see a connection?
Well, regarding the outcomes of the difference coming from people, if they had experience or not, for sure we will have results. So when we will have finished, I agree that is a very interesting topic. And the second question, I think the human factor will play a huge role on it, and the cultural factor as well. Yeah. But we don't have results on that yet.
So in the partnership, do you have human factors experts?
Yes, many human we have psychologists of transport, sociologists, anthropologists. So we have a full team with different social science and humanities expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you. On that topic, Hector, what kind of changes do you see when you do the VR testing and different tries with AVs? Do people change opinion before and after?
Yeah, actually, it was interesting to see in some of the prototypical regions, the reaction was rather positive to AVs. Because they were able to immerse themselves in the scenarios that we had programmed for them, and actually these misconceptions that they have on CCAM then were being there, then they disappeared, right? So I think that's perhaps one of the nice things is that when you talk to people that do not know anything about autonomous vehicles, they might have something in their mind, a stereotype on them, but then once they experience it, they realize that it's not that bad after all. So I think that's one of the nice things we were able to achieve with the VRs and the different scenarios we provided.
Thank you. Great to hear. So more of that. More questions from the audience? I don't see all your hands. Are there no more questions? Yes.
Yes, hello. Good afternoon. Sven Janssen, also from TNO. I'm just wondering, of course, for the users of public transport, the service level is very important. So I'm wondering, what do you consider the key aspects concerning the vehicle technologies that need to be developed?
I'm sorry, the question I think is for me, but I didn't hear you good. Can you please repeat?
Okay, so I understand that the service level of having mobility available is very important for the users. But on the other hand, also what's happening inside the vehicle and what the vehicle can do will have some impact on their acceptance. So what do you consider the most important aspects on vehicle technologies?
So something that was surprising us is that people trust technology and people trust the decision of more experts one. So when we discussed about what do you need inside the vehicles, for example, an old woman answered, well, I'm sure you are doing everything you can in order to let us feel comfortable, in order to let us feel safe, and in order to have a nice trip. Other than that, I'm not asking anything more. This was a nice answer that, in my opinion, was an example of many feedback that we had, that they're not asking for something peculiar within the vehicles in the public transport, but more on their availability and accessibility, of course. Other than that, according to, maybe your question was more about the technology that they would like to have inside?
Well, it's just the perspective of the user. So if they feel comfortable and safe, of course, that's very important. But somehow we need to translate that also to the vehicle technologies, because the vehicles need to be developed to provide those means.
Yeah, I don't have any answer right now. For sure, it's something that we are going to analyze, especially when we are going to talk with the stakeholders. We will do focus group and workshop in order to try to translate the sentences and the feedback from people to concrete answer to vehicle operators, vehicle manufacturers, and so on and so on. So maybe a little bit later on the project, I'll be able to say more about this.
Okay, looking forward to that. Thank you.
Just also to build up on that, on the virtual reality games, we've included different scenarios. So at night, in city or outside the cities, so more on the rural areas. And I think those results, because the virtual reality games just happened end of December, early January. So I think the results from them will be interesting to see how the onboard conditions were like for the citizens. But from the use cases that we co-created, the majority of them, the citizens mentioned that they wanted to have onboard security cameras just to increase their level of safety, because the driver at a certain point provides this safety for the passengers. So not having a driver at all, yes, it raises a bit the safety concerns for passengers. So they want cameras or a security system that somehow is connected to the police, for example. Yeah.
And the lights.
Yeah, with lights, I'll guess.
Yes, finally.
Hi, I'm Ragnhild Wall from ITS Norway, and I also represent the MODI project. Thank you for very good presentations. I think all of your projects are very important for all the other ongoing and coming projects. And I really would like, really would wish that you had your projects 5 years ago. All your results, whether it's terminology, taxonomy, impact assessment, methodology, or whatever, the other projects should very much like to, or should be obliged to use those kind of methods. And how do you work on the knowledge transfer to other projects? Is it, one of you mentioned training sessions, but how do you approach that?
That's a good question. Regarding the knowledge transfer, of course, the trainings, we will do a big campaign around them. They will be open for anybody to join, but we will try to reach out those stakeholders that are involved in CCAM, right? Because you would be the ones that are firsthand, in action regarding projects and also developing the products and services vehicles. As you saw as well, we are planning to develop a framework in which it will help those who are implementing CCAM to identify how is the best way in order to consider the societal impacts. As of course, using the tool, which will be open to use. So also you can bring it along to your project design and development. And finally is the roadmaps from these use cases that we have developed on the different time frame. And in case, for example, you have one of these use cases as part of your projects, then you would be able to see how to do a successful integration of the services or solutions according to our roadmap.
I have a question also for you, Stefan Dreher, because we're now developing frameworks and data platforms, but at the same time collecting data to be on those platforms. So how do we ensure the development of the platform in a good way so that they suit the new data sets that arrive? Is there a process for...
Yeah, I can actually combine that with the answer I also wanted to give to complement what was asked previously, because indeed in FAME the approach is co-creation. So we really want to work with the projects in order to get their input, their challenges, and what they need from these different tools. So this is valid for the evaluation methodology, which we are building with the projects themselves through small dedicated methodology clinics. And for the data sharing framework, it's the same approach. So we have really reached out to all the projects to understand first if they are really interested in sharing the data. And now the idea is, of course, once we start developing it, is that they are involved in it to really raise the challenges related to data formats and what they would really need to that. So, but it's a process that is just starting now with at least the data space. And the idea is to work together with the projects on this.
So projects very welcome here to share with FAME. Yes, again.
Thanks. Another question for Stefan. I'm interested in this taxonomy, because it does seem like a very interesting tool, because we're always stumbling. We're using the same word in so many different ways. And I'm just wondering, what's the plan? Well, first, how are you populating it? What's the plan for rolling it out maybe across all the CCAM projects? And what's your projection for the future?
I've not been involved myself directly in the implementation of that. So that was a tool that was developed mainly by our partner MapTM, so Tom Alkim in particular and his team. Yeah, the idea is really to have one first comprehensive tool that is really that includes all the different taxonomies and links as well. So as I mentioned, it's not only the idea to have our own taxonomy, but really to integrate all the taxonomies and all the vocabularies and the glossaries that have been developed by all the associated projects. So I think this will evolve again here as well in sort of... It's online already. And the idea is really that it evolves together with the projects in the end, so that we will as well, because it's now online, to get the feedback and then build it together with the inputs and the improvements of the community. Yeah.
There's a contact, an email address on the homepage so that you can connect if you want to add anything.
You can have direct feedback. There's feedback forms on the taxonomy.
Feedback form even, so use it. It's our tool, I would dare say. Do we have any, yes, more questions?
It was more common because what Stefan didn't say is that all the results of all these CCAM projects should end up on the knowledge base. That's how we will share all these results. That's where in the future they should all be centralized, so to say.
Well said.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Monica Grosso. I work at the JRC. And I just want to comment on something that has been said before in relation to the technological element within an automated vehicles. We have been looking at this, and the results of these activities were actually published in 2020 with the Eurobarometer study on the impact on automated vehicles and how the European citizens see this. And indeed, the fact that they could have a human being in the vehicle checking how the technology was behaving, or a remote control, or even not having anyone in the vehicle would make a lot of difference in the perception and in the feeling that they would have inside the vehicle. So it's something that maybe you could also use as a reference in your study. And we have also conducting focus groups with different user groups at the GRC. Of course, not the scale was not similar to yours, but maybe it could be also interest for some references. And there is a point that I want to question actually about the SINFONICA, a bit a methodological one. When you talked about the different rounds of co-creation and different moments that you will have with the different citizens, I missed what is then the next level that you will take into consideration in the next step of this round. Thank you.
So the free round was decided, first of all, for the methodologies, in order to have at the end the perfect, let's hope, methodologies for data collection and for the engagement strategies. Then we focus on what we can change in what we ask to people and what we discussed. The first round was characterized by questions that we found in literature and previous projects in order to see if something changed. Of course, it was enriched by the needs of the different municipalities, but it was, for the survey, semi-structured interviews, so we were giving hints as well. The second round will be characterized by open question, completely open, in order to let people talk. And our goal is not to have a complete questionnaire for all the people, but instead of digging deeper of maybe one question. For example, I really would like to talk with a person that said hell to the answer, what do you think about? And the third round will be focusing more on emotions, both for the interviews and the focus group. This is our plan, but it can change. Not for the second round, because it's starting now, but for the third. Because for the third round, we will have talked also with the stakeholders during the workshop. So it might be that some questions coming from people that work with vehicles and public authorities and so on would go on the third round questions. And I add that we are also developing a wide survey in order to be shared among all Europe. And we are building the survey starting from the results of the different round. So now we have the first draft of the survey. We are testing it, but it will be completed just when we will have all the results.
Are you happy? Great. Any more hands? I know, Andrea, you have some questions.
Yeah, I was keeping here for myself. The first one is for Sunrise. Stefan, you were mentioning that you are involving 4 key stakeholder groups to the collection of the requirements. Is there any mechanism in place also to double check in the evaluation phase if these requirements are met by the solution you propose?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question, and it also responds a little bit to the earlier question about co-creation, because the final goal one of the final goals to be achieved by the Sunrise project is adoption by vehicle safety bodies of the framework that we are creating. So, of course, we're taking them into account from the start with this study that you just mentioned on that particular task. But constantly during the whole project, we're in contact with all those vehicle safety bodies, with UNE CE, with Euro NCAP, with all the standardization and normalization entities, to constantly explain what we're doing and ask their feedback. So in that sense, it's a constant co-creation, if you want to call it, or iteration between the final users of the framework that, of course, should be happy with the final result and should not be presented with the final result at the very end of the project. That's the whole idea behind it. So at the midterm also, we will have important feedback from all those vehicle safety bodies and other entities, from external entities on our first version of the framework. So that's also a very important moment to reflect on what users think about it and how we will further develop our framework in the second half of the project.
Thank you a lot, Stefan. I have also another question for Fame, to keep it balanced. So you were presenting, I mean, this, as I was mentioning at the beginning, of course, the complexity require coordination frameworks, and within the same coordination framework, we have multiple front lines to defend at the same time. And I was, for instance, mentioning taxonomy or the mapping of stakeholders or the common evaluation methodology. So what would you say that today you are at reach to achieve in sort of coordination? Or what is still far away to be achieved?
Yeah, I mean, what we would like at least to do is through the knowledge base to gather the knowledge. I think that's really a first step to the coordination. So far, the knowledge base was really aimed at least helping the projects to set up their project, the large-scale demonstration. So that's why we collected all these tools. And I think now a big challenge was all these analysis of testing regulations. So that's, as you can imagine, that's a very difficult task for EU-funded project because this is still in the hands of member states. So at least collecting all this information, I think, was something that was really, really helpful. And hopefully the workshops that we will organize now this week will show that also it can hopefully end up in some actions or policy recommendation or guidelines that will in the end facilitate the organization of large-scale demonstrations, in particular across different countries. And then I think now what we need, the biggest challenges that are ahead is also towards deployment. I think now that we have been really working on more projects and research, I think we have been speaking about social acceptance, so we need to open up this knowledge as well to actually citizens, reach out to them, and as well to share more best practices on operational aspects. So learning as well at international level, so we are also trying to support that with the FAME projects, bringing together the EU projects together with projects from the international community. So I think these are the type of challenges because it's broader than Europe actually, we really need to learn across the borders.
Thank you a lot, Steph. I have a final question that is for both Hector and Julia. So I'm personally involved in this discussion about societal readiness, so it's something that is always in my ear. And basically, if you look into societal readiness, there are two aspects. One is being informed, and once we are informed, how you react if you want to accept a certain technology. So if we split these two aspects, what would you say is the misconception? So you are not informed, and this is what is already in your mind, and what is instead the the reaction when you are informed and you still reject CCAM in your city?
Well, I think for any disruption in our normal day-to-day activities, there will be rejection, right? I think these are people that will need to adapt on a longer time horizon, but I'm a believer that automation is coming and will come, you know, and will be here to stay. So then just these persons will need to have a longer adaptation period, but then we'll have some early adopters that will be the ones that will push forward this form of mobility. And so in regards on move to CCAM, I mean, from the different co-creation activities that we've been able to have, the virtual reality games, the demo, I'm pretty sure we will have some, from the results that we're still processing, we'll have some people that will have feelings against, that then will help us define in which dimensions of our assessment criteria are the ones that they are feeling strongly against them. And so this perhaps might then help us define these roadmaps that we will have on the short, medium, and long term, and then also will help in the implementation of these use cases to see which are the areas that would need to further develop in order to have the desired impact on the different time horizons.
I agree with Hector. I'm a believer as well. So you said that we are going through an adaptation period, and that I think is something that we cannot exclude on our vision, that we will need some transition. And I'm thinking that we should learn from previous transition in order to do something better. And I'm thinking about the digitalization. So before, if I had to buy a train ticket, I had to go on the station. Now there is an app. And there is also the possibility of buying the ticket on the train station, most of the train station. So probably the time of the opening hours are being reduced, but the option is still there mostly. So what I think this adaptation period needs to be sure we are there also for people that don't want to go with autonomous vehicle yet. So make sure that we give some other option. Maybe it will not be a good service or a wide service as the autonomous one, but we need to be sure that we are there. And I think we don't have to give up on those people by keeping the opportunities on sharing the opinions, on sharing the experiences, on sharing the views. Some weeks ago, a very nice research came out. It's about, now I'm not sure if it's the right word in English, but the solar panel. And it came out that is not for the incentives that people are using it, but if their neighbor have it. So it's still so much important, the words of mouth, letting the people know other people that are using, especially with people with some special needs. I think this is something that has to be considered in the adaptation period that Hector was mentioning.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you so much. Anyone that come up with any more questions in the audience here? I was thinking a bit, Stefan de Vries, about your expert panel. You wanted people to connect, to give you input on the assurance framework. What do you put in the word expert here? Because just want to make sure that everyone that has inputs want to give them.
Well, I think everybody that is in this room is in principle sufficiently expert to join that network. So yeah, we don't really have a strict criteria for that. Well, actually, when selecting people, we looked at least 2 years of experience in the field of CCAM somehow. So it's not very strict, but also when we get feedback, we also look a little bit at the profile of the person that gives that feedback. So we know more or less what the grades in different experts are. So the level of expertise, so to say. So that's how we more or less handle the feedback that we get through that network.
So all feedback is welcome, and then
absolutely, yeah.
You will interpret.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, thank you, perfect. So about this, what we talked about here is that collaboration and building on each other's knowledge is really important forward. So last question to you in the panel here. How do you collaborate with other projects?
Well,
and what could you improve?
Okay. Well, first of all, I think the FAME project is playing a pivotal role in this, because Stefan and his team are very, very careful on what we are doing. They are reaching us in order to see if we have finished with that activities, if we set up a call in order to spread the words of what we are doing. And I think this is very important as a coordination point of view. And I also know that when I'm looking for some specific connection, I can count on the FAME project feedback in order to see who I can talk with. And then for what regards SINFONICA, we are trying to participating to the workshop of the other projects. We are trying to participate to conferences that we know other projects are participating. And we are trying to share the message that we are there in order to discuss, in order to give a possibility of participating on our focus group. When we organize our steering committee twice a year, we are always trying to do something interactive, also involving other projects in order to share a bit our way of working and our results.
In general, just quickly, I would say these spaces, right? Coming to these conferences, also the different events that the CCAM partnership organizes. I think that's the moment in which we can take a pause and look around the different projects that are there and find these commonalities, right? And then spark the collaboration, because otherwise we get caught in the day-to-day of all of the project activities, and then the opportunity to connect passes. So I would say from my side, being present in these events helped me to reach out to others.
Yeah, can I also comment on this? So from the Sunrise project, there's various ways in which we look for contacts with external entities, which might be the individual experts from this platform that we just mentioned, but also in parallel, we reach out in dedicated work package number 8 to all vehicle safety bodies that are potential users of this framework. So that's also a constant effort that we're doing. Then also, like was mentioned by my colleagues here on the table, that these kind of conferences are very useful to identify those people that play a key role in initiatives that are very similar to the Sunrise project. And once that is done, we normally establish an online meeting after such a conference to see what can we do together, to really present ourselves a bit more in detail, and to identify those areas where we can collaborate. And in that way, we've opened many doors around the world. For example, in Korea, in Australia, in Canada and USA with various entities. And that's been very useful in that sense, these conferences to start that kind of dialogue.
Yeah, and I have to add one thing, of course. So thank you, Julia, for the praise. So it's very positive, of course, to hear that we have achieved our mission to bring the projects together. And I must say that, of course, it has been dramatically improved with the CCAM partnership, of course. So as I mentioned, FAME is building on a long legacy of projects, which were focusing on aligning and bringing together projects. And in the past, in Horizon 2020, it was much more difficult to reach out to the project because there was not really the obligation to do so, or there was no really connection actually between the project. And I think to have now these partnerships helps having a common vision. So I think we are all more or less part of the same family of projects where we have to share, and that makes our mission much more interesting as well. And also within the partnership, I mentioned that there's not only the EU projects, but as well the national projects. And here, this cooperation we have with the member states representative group in the partnership is also extremely helpful. So we had a very good cooperation with them. We learned a lot about projects that are ongoing at national level and which were not known, and we are integrating them in the knowledge base. And here we can learn a lot because many of these projects really have been at smaller scale and more hands-on and have this operational experience that we need as well to learn at the European level. So I think there's still some very positive contribution here from the partnership.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all panelists. Very good answers and presentations. Thank you all the audience for staying until the last minute here. Wish you a really good evening and see you again 9 o'clock tomorrow, I think. Round of applause to all of you.